The Bears are conducting their in-person interview with Mike McCarthy today. Their second known candidate to interview in person after Ron Rivera. McCarthy flew from Dallas to Wheeling in private accommodations, which is a departure from previous team protocol. McCarthy is also a target for the Saints opening and is expected to interview with New Orleans. So I'll tell you, Kevin Warren, he got through to the Bears. I don't know what he's done since he's been on the job, but he got through to George. You don't fly coaching candidates in middle seats on coach.
That's right.
Coach doesn't fly coach.
Coach doesn't fly coach.
Not a coach that's been to a Super Bowl like they did with Dan Quinn a couple of years ago. You don't fly coach candidates in business class in a middle seat, okay? So they actually flew him in private.
Is New Orleans new ownership? Remember the umbrella guy?
Benson?
Is Benson gone or is the wife? The wife still have it and she's got control of it. Just that he's got a 5-year history in New Orleans.
He does.
As an offensive coordinator down there. So that'd just be one thing that you'd want to concern yourself with.
He's still there, right? Is Mickey Loomis is still there?
I believe Mickey Loomis is, but I'm talking about
No, you're talking about the owners, I know.
Yeah.
Gail Benson is the current owner of the New Orleans Saints. Took over after Tom Benson's death in 2018. So I believe it's still in the Benson family.
So, I mean, that's just what you'd concern yourself with if you're the Bears, because they've got a history with him.
Yeah.
He was there. They were kind of happy with him before he went and moved on to Green Bay.
Mickey's been there since 2000.
Yeah.
Been there a long time. So, and he obviously goes back to an era where Mike was down there. You're right. Yeah, so there's some familiarity. I would think this situation's a little bit more appealing to a coach like Mike McCarthy with Caleb. At least I would think, because he might see a young quarterback going into his second year that he could work with that's cost controlled. So,
I always argued that the team underperformed what they were. They were 5-12. The team underperformed. There is talent there, but talent not all pulling on the same side of the rope and somewhat dysfunctional. And the way they were like almost anti their coach. At some point, there was the mutiny. Whenever you have that and you've got 53 people playing as individuals, not as a team, well, you're going to get a fractured group. There's going to be no strength to it. There's going to be nothing to that group. So if you can get somebody in there, then go ahead and pull that group together and get them pulling in the right direction. There is some talent there.
Yeah,
they're not devoid of talent. They've got some skills, so skilled players.
This roster is in better shape than it was 3 years ago, like a lot better. I mean, I guess you've got to give Ryan Poles some credit for that. He's had some misses, but it's a lot
weak
better.
at the worst parts, though.
That's true.
It's weak at the worst parts.
That's true.
So that's the problem. Your offensive and defensive line is somewhat. If you need 5 in the offensive line, you might have 2 or 1.5. If you need 4 on the defensive line, you might have 2. That's where you're at, and that's a problem. Though in the defensive backfield, I bet you 8 of those guys could start. The 4 you guys got a second group of 4. I bet you they could start in this league and be a very competitive group. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You really got strength in one area of your team to the point where you almost have a second team that could play first team. But you don't have that. Your 2 most important positions, offensive and defensive line.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
So
there is more talent. Some of it you'd wish was not so much concentrated in areas where you feel like you could actually get by with sometimes slightly lesser talent. To Jurko's point, you want that O-line and that D-line to be stout and good and dominant. And I think when you look around the league and you just look at the 8 teams this weekend, you're going to see a lot of that across both teams' lines. It's not always going to be perfect. The Kansas City Chiefs are a disaster on the outside. Guard to guard, they're incredible. They're an absolute disaster on the outside. Now, their quarterback and their play caller and how strong they are in the middle probably makes up for it. But they've got 3 guys across the interior,
and their head coach
and their head coach,
being able to hold things together, and that quarterback being able to make guys better than they might actually be.
Very true.
Yeah,
that's very true. But guard to guard, they're incredible. They're all world. I mean, at least if you had that, you'd feel better about the situation. The Bears don't have that. They're not incredible anywhere on their O-line. They're maybe only slightly above average at one spot, and that's the right tackle, right? I mean, I don't know, where else would you rave about the Bears across that O-line?
And then because you're the greatest strength on a bad offensive line, how good are you actually? Yeah. So that's ultimately the test you're going to have with Darnell Wright. And at some point, I'm going to have to ask him to become a leader. At some point now, his 3rd year, you got to let your little guys drop, and you've got to let your booming voice be heard. and you've got to keep people in line. You're the guy that now has to keep people in line. Big number 58 in his third year. Keep people in line.
Yeah.
You're the guy. The same way Olin used to sit there and just bash guys upside the head with a weight. That's the way it might have to be done. Freddie Miller got the message, didn't he?
Well, yeah.
Didn't Big Fred Miller get the message after he got careened off the skull with a 10-pound Weeder weight?
The problem with that whole thing was like it was off-team property. They'd been drinking all day. And
Discipline, no boundaries. Discipline has no boundaries.
That wasn't really like a football thing, unfortunately.
They're all football players. They're all football players.
That's true.
He didn't go whack some guy from the FBI in the head, did he? No, he whacked one of his own teammates.
They were fighting about something that day. Who knows?
Fussing and fighting, Carl.
So a lot's happened like in the last 24 hours. If you can find those offshore sites that float the, who to be the next coach's props, Ben Johnson is still a slight favorite to be the Bears' next head coach.
I saw the latest odds.
He's minus 250.
Minus 250.
All right, so not slight, but Mike McCarthy has leaped all the way to second choice.
Right.
Well, I just went on the website now and
has it been tweaked?
No, this is offshore. So like,
okay, what's Vegas's chances of getting Ben Johnson? Is it minus 450?
Yeah.
The interesting part about this is I just went to the website just to see what it was, if it had been updated. And all the coaching jobs are off the board except for Dallas.
Oh, things have gone awry.
When I looked
inside information, somebody must have made some heavy plays, right?
When I looked this morning, Ben Johnson was favorite for the Raiders job, but he was like plus 110.
And he's the favorite for the Bears job.
For the Bears, he's minus 250, and he was second for
Jacksonville.
Yes.
Who's the?
The Saints. The Saints. It was the Saints, I believe.
Keep marching in.
Liam Cohen was the favorite for the Jaguars.
For Jayville.
And the Saints' favorite is Aaron Glenn.
Yes.
And the Cowboys' favorite is Deion Sanders.
Deion, I would figure.
Plus 150, and Jason Witten is plus 175.
So one of the heavier favorites, it sounds like just across the spectrum, would be you're laying minus money on Ben Johnson to be the Bears coach. I'm not so sure. I think if I had to handicap this right now and set it, I think Mike McCarthy might be the favorite. He's going to be in town today. There are plans to take him to dinner tonight.
Oh, lovely. Escargot, Carm?
I don't know about escargot.
Delicious.
I like me some escargot. They're not, as I understand it, they're not going to a French restaurant. But
will they be opening up a bottle of Beaujolais tonight, do you believe?
I would think that they'll open up something nice because Kevin Warren knows his wine.
Maybe we should call our sommelier friend over at the French Laundry, Carm. You got his number, don't you?
I don't, actually.
You and him seem to make a connection that
night. Wish I did get his number.
I'm telling you.
I would think slide into his DMs afterwards.
I did not. No, I would think a bottle of Sassicaia is on deck for tonight.
And why not?
Or
you bet. Or
Eagle.
A bottle of Jedediah.
Jedediah is for dessert afterwards. Yeah.
Or some Jeremiah weed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking some delicious steaks and some Sassicaia and some really expensive. But we'll see if it gets to that point, if they like what they hear, if they like the way the meeting goes. They did one interview via Zoom already this morning. That was with Arthur Smith. They have an in-person interview, and as Courtney just told you, they have flown him in private to what's the name of that airport right there? It's like Milwaukee and what is that, guys? And like
Executive
Airport. Yeah, it's right there in Milwaukee, right? Like at Dundee. Do I have my bearings right?
Yeah.
Somewhere right around there.
I didn't even know the Bears had a PJ.
Well, they could lease one. I mean, you could
wheels up, my friend. Come on.
Yeah,
they just
I understand.
Contact Herbie.
I don't think they own one, Adam. I think you could very easily, with the Bears' resources, be like, we want to get a private jet for our guy today.
I understand that they could. I just didn't know that they would.
Well, I think that this was something that who reported it about a week ago. It might have been Courtney. There were others in the know that were saying the Bears are going to deviate here a little bit. They won't fly a guy in a middle seat. Like Cap was the first person I heard say that. I did not know that till I heard Cap say it, that they brought Dan Quinn in here and he flew commercial in a middle seat. Like, you want to fly him commercial, or you at least spring for a first class ticket.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're going to make the guy stand in line and go through security and all that.
What's
private airport?
What's stunning is that George McCaskey needs to be told that.
Yeah. Well, Flanders, our guy Flanders.
Like you need someone to come in and be like, hey, dude.
Could you imagine asking
you own
a coach,
an NFL team?
Could you imagine asking a coach for their known traveler number?
That's what I mean. Like, And you might still need to do that because obviously flying private, you're still going through security. I mean, but like,
yeah, but it's only you
right,
and
like
whoever. It's like 5 people.
That George McCaskey or that anybody up there, that nobody would stop and say, wait a minute. And I know we're making too big of a deal out of it. Sure. Guys, I interviewed somewhere and they didn't fly me first class.
Yeah, well, either way,
Okay.
I guess
I did a Zoom interview too, guys. It's how things are done in 2025. Yeah, okay.
Maybe legal counsel is getting it right, Kevin Warren. Maybe legal counsel has been around the world. He's seen the way it's supposed to be done, and maybe he's upgrading the philosophies up there. So good for Kevin Warren. And good for the fact that he might finally getting things situated up there.
Okay,
Sweaty Teddy didn't care.
So I don't.
It's incredible.
Did Courtney's tweet say when he landed?
No, but I can read it again.
No.
I don't
All right,
think
what
it
does
is.
Courtney's tweet say? Because I'm on the flight tracker. I think I found the flight.
We're tracking a flight, guys.
I think I found the flight.
What is it? Romeo, Juliet, 3, 5er, 9er? Romeo,
Echo,
Juliet,
Tango,
Echo,
Zulu,
Tango,
359.
Foxtrot.
Bear down. For me and Kaler, per league source, the Bears are conducting their interview with Mike McCarthy this afternoon, the second known candidate in person after Ron Rivera Sunday. McCarthy flew from Dallas to Wheeling in private accommodations, making it sound like it has happened.
Okay, because there's only one flight that I see coming from Dallas that landed, and it landed at 11:51. So just about 20 minutes ago.
That could be it.
So that could be it.
And he could be en route right now, and he could be listening.
Shout out to Mike McCarthy.
Shout out to Coach McCarthy.
Let's
listen to what the idiot sports talkers are saying.
Yeah,
Coach
and this
McCarthy.
would be the station your show would be featured on.
That's
Captain
right.
J. Hood in the
Captain
morning.
J. Hood with Coach McCarthy.
Mondays
every
with
morning.
Mike.
I certainly don't mean to besmirch the name of George Flanders McCaskey either, Mike. So, if you are
Walk it
listening,
back,
just know that.
He's probably like, wait, they flew Dan Quinn, my former DC, commercial in a middle seat? No, he knows Dan Quinn probably told him. Dan Quinn probably was like, geez, not for nothing. But
Commercial. On a commercial. No,
I had a middle seat.
They flew him in the cargo area of the FedEx plane.
You think he sent him a picture from inside the PJ and was like, huh? Look at this.
Oh, dude, I would have busted his balls right away. That'd be good friend ball busting, right? Be like, hey, not for nothing, Dan. Private jet, lobster escargot.
And then
Kwame sent me some lobster escargot and a little bit of that braised pork
sauce
that they've got.
Oh man,
that braised pork belly.
Good.
This is the way business is done in 2025, guys, and not in the NFL, fellas. When you're Mike McCarthy, you get a private plane sent for you. Okay.
Period.
That's the way business is done in the NFL.
They're going to make Ben Johnson drive because it's only a 4.5-hour drive. Like, well, by the time you get to the airport and get on the plane, I mean, you might as well drive,
They're
right?
going to send a coach bus for him. At least we got a bus. He gets his own bus with the bathroom. So at least they're like, okay, taking the steps to rectify some of the things they've done wrong over the years. So McCarthy today, we'll see how this goes. I don't want to say the Bears pivoting off of Johnson. I don't know how much they were ever like fully all in on Johnson. Something tells me with all the guys they have conducted interviews with, like they really did want to cast a wide net and they weren't totally sold on one candidate. I don't know how you get to like 20 candidates if you were completely convinced on one or two. Some of these other spots, it seems like it's a much more narrow focus. Maybe the Bears are doing it right. I don't really know. I won't be too critical of that. I don't think it's wrong to take your time and make sure that you interview a lot of good candidates to try to get this right. But places like Jayville, I don't think Jayville does much right, but like places like Jayville, the Raiders with Brady now kind of taking point on all this, it's a much more narrow scope. People are starting to come out of the woodwork saying that Tom Brady is enamored with Ben Johnson and that Ben Johnson is starting to become the heavy favorite to go there.
Admiration society there.
Everybody's admires Brady, I think.
Not Giselle.
Not
anymore.
And not the kung fu instructor.
That's
Who
right.
was it? Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu.
I don't think he's enamored with Tom Brady.
He's not either.
I think he's like Tom Brady.
Right.
Pish posh.
Belichick.
So this is Belichick.
Yeah.
This is Dan Patrick on his show talking about the Bears, Ben Johnson, and Tom Brady, and the Raiders and Ben Johnson. Take a listen.
I was told last night that Ben Johnson, the Raiders makes more sense because he doesn't want to go against the Lions and Dan Campbell being in the same conference. Whether that's true or not,
I'm going to say
I think also the allure of Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is making decisions with the Raiders. It feels like he's making the decisions with the Raiders.
I more believe the second part of that than the first part.
Yeah.
What do you think? You sound like you had a reaction to that first part.
I told you that before. When I looked at the jobs that were available and that were out there, and if I was Ben Johnson, what I would be thinking or not thinking.
Yeah.
I've talked.
So you believe that?
I've talked about this. Yeah. Well, if I'd have to go after him, the Bears look at it. Is it great? I'm a head coach. I'm trying to put myself in a situation where I could put my stamp on what we're doing, the Ben Johnson stamp. That way they could talk about the Ben Johnson tree for the rest of my lifetime. They talk about, look what's come off the Ben Johnson tree. You know what I'm saying? Go someplace where, boom. Now, when you're out west, you don't get the love from the media that you get, when you're out east. But out there, you can go ahead and put your stamp on it. And if you can find a way to overtake Kansas City, bam, you're one of the best teams out there.
I mean, you're going into kind of a meat grinder. Again, I don't know how much that factors into what these coaches, I don't know that it goes into the calculus that much. I mean, I think they're all very confident in their ability. I think there's one of 32 jobs that they're going to get. These are prestigious things.
But if I had my choice, I'd prefer to put myself in a situation for success.
Yeah.
And you can do that.
West,
you can do that in one way. You can do that in the other way. And I know the AFC West is tough.
The AFC West features Patrick Mahomes and Andy
Right.
Reid, Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. That wasn't a great look over the weekend. I get it. But I still think in terms of regular season, having to play a team like that twice a year, that's no easy task for the foreseeable future, having to take on Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. And then you've got Sean Payton as well. You've got
Denver.
What I took away
you've got
from
an
that
impressive
bite,
group of coaches and quarterbacks in that division.
what I took away from that bite is that he doesn't want to specifically face Dan Campbell, the guy he worked with
Yes.
for that long. Not that he's scared of the Lions or scared of the Vikings
But, I mean,
or the
geez,
Packers.
can you be that picky though?
It's
Adam?
that he doesn't want to face his former
Can Ben
head
Johnson?
coach.
I guess
be
when you
that
have
picky?
options, you can be that picky.
Yes. Yes. He can be that picky.
I would think
He's the number one option at two places. He's the second option at another place, according to the odds. Of course he can be picky.
I would think it's more, and if you've got brothers, you know what I mean? Like, I would think it'd be more like brotherish. Like, I wouldn't run from competing like at all. We want to like destroy each other.
Well, I mean, that's
Mostly.
a strange kind of thing that you guys had going on in your
We were
family.
like very competitive with one another. Like we still kind of are.
I always drag my brother around with me.
I always drag my brothers with me. They were
He
always
was third
with me.
grade playing on my sixth grade basketball team. He was going to play. That's the way
I
it was.
understand it, but you wanted to like, you weren't ever be like, I can't go against him and beat him. I don't know.
My
like,
problem was I could always kick my little brother's ass until he got
Okay.
bigger than me.
But-
And then it became a problem.
then it became a problem.
Yeah, then it became a problem.
I can't believe that like a guy who's risen to this position in these ranks would be like, I don't want to beat up on my buddy Dan Campbell. I think he'd want to slay him. I don't
In the
know.
Super Bowl. He wants to slay him in the Super Bowl
maybe.
or in the playoffs, not necessarily twice a year.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me.
To be fair, we didn't hear this coming from the Shanahan tree, right? You don't hear that between little Shanahan and McVay.
Yeah, like did McVay
You don't hear
not,
that
right,
between
yeah, like did he not
all-
want to take a job in the NFC West? Because
Right.
I mean, like
those two came up together.
What are we talking
They're in the
about?
same
I mean,
division. They're under the same umbrella.
And I bet you more than anything, as much mutual respect and love and admiration they have for one another, they want to destroy each other. I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money on it. So I don't know. It's really?
If
He
I had
doesn't
my-
want to go against Dan
If
Campbell.
I had my druthers, and if I could find a way to control it, the day I would want to destroy him is in the Super Bowl.
Okay, that's an interesting take
That's
on
me.
it.
That's me.
He sees it as like, I
I'm
want to be in
different.
the other
I'm
conference and I want to beat his ass then when it
Never
matters
know. If
most.
we meet in the Super Bowl, I'll beat your ass. Otherwise, I'll beat your ass every fourth year.
Yeah, right.
I'll beat your ass every fourth
Which-
year
which-
when we see each other.
Which job has the least amount of resistance to success? It's got to be Jacksonville, right?
Yeah,
Because
Jayville.
the Texans are the best team in their division,
Yeah.
but
they're not a dominant force.
they're not Kansas City.
Right.
They're not Buffalo.
They're not Baltimore.
They're not Detroit.
You're not in the AFC North where every team seems to win.
Right.
I think there is and Jurko pointed this out. I mean, you talk about we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I think there is a major course correction coming in the NFC North.
Oh, absolutely. It has to.
I
can't go 26-6 against the other two divisions.
I think
I
think it's going to be
it's 20 games
dramatic.
over 500. Yeah.
Dramatic.
Yeah, well, that's why I've already predicted the winner next year will have 11 victories.
Yeah.
11 victories. Because the schedules for everybody, 8 games are going to be a little bit tougher than they were this year.
This is a one-off.
This is an
an
one-off.
anomaly.
Absolutely.
There's just no.
Yeah. But you knew what you were playing going into the year, hence the lofty expectations I had for the division as far as regular season.
Yeah. I mean, and in fairness, people were predicting that it would be good. You couldn't have predicted this.
Right.
And it was a weird confluence of events, I think. That
exactly.
There's just, you're 100% right. There's no way this is happening.
There's no way in hell. I bet you 26-6 in that regard, if you go back and you take a look at it, you won't find it.
Yeah, it's
8-0, 8-0, 7-1, 3-5.
It's absurd.
That is absurd.
Yeah. So major course correction coming. I get your point though, Chris. Your least path of resistance does appear to be that other division, appears to be that South. Yes.
Because you can't make the argument for the Raiders.
No.
The Raiders and the Bears are in the same lot in life.
I would agree.
They have really good teams that should be good for a long time
those
in
are
their
be
division.
Challenges. Those are going to be more challenging.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
right.
Vegas is an easier route. I wouldn't say that, especially with no quarterback.
Now, the one thing that Vegas has,
quarterback. Yeah, and Sean Payton's there as well.
Yeah, Jayville is the route that you'd want. If you'd want the easiest route to success, it'd be Jayville with Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, look at the coaching record of the other 3 guys in that division. To your point.
I mean, why wouldn't
I bet you those guys have won 60-something% of their games combined, right? 60. I mean, they've had to.
As an offensive coordinator, if I wanted a challenge, the challenge would be to get Trevor Lawrence right.
Yes.
Here's a guy that was all world coming out of Clemson.
Yeah, you could have
if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm going to bring him in and I'm going to fine tune him. I get the wrenches out, the screwdrivers, the pneumatic wrench, boom. And get things starting working with that guy.
Boy, I tell you,
get that long-haired, freaky person right. That's what I'd be looking to do.
He's a curious case, Yerk, because there are some weeks when you put it on and you go, wow. Yeah. And then there are others you go,
what the hell's going on?
What's happening?
What's going on?
Who took over Trevor Lawrence's body? It's a curious case.
Four non-blondes all of a sudden pops in my head. What's going on?
It's
weird. Said, hey. But that's what comes in your brain.
Yes.
What the hell is going on here?
He's a curious study.
4 non-blondes. But one-hit wonder, by the way.
That.
One-hit wonder.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yep.
And I said, hey. I looked to the city and I looked outside.
Don't even start.
I
went for the what's going on. Now you know the whole song. Well, you're a freak.
Well, I don't know all the lyrics.
You're a freak.
A little confusing. Isn't that it? Something like that?
Yeah, that's the one. Yes. It's glorious. About 93, 94 for that one.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'd want to I'd be drawn to like the potential of Trevor still, though. I think you're right. Like you could have this. Now, this could be who he is, or you could be the coach that unlocks that last little missing thing and makes him really special the way I think most of us thought he would be. And again, sometimes you do see it. Like you do put on their games sometime and you go, man, Trevor Lawrence is good. And then there's others where it's just like, what in holy hell is happening? Thoughts on this coaching search and where it's going, where it's going to end. You can ring us up at 312-332-3776. There's just so much like speculation and conjecture right now, Yerk. I don't know. And I feel like we got a few more potentially, and who knows, another 10 days of it and another week of it, another 2. I don't know. Depending on how dead set they are on getting like Johnson in the building at some point. Does McCarthy blow them away today? Like I heard Cap say it earlier today, he'll be the adult in the room. And it'll be an adult voice in the room, which it seems like they desperately need. But I've heard that before. You know when I heard it? I heard it when John Fox got the job. There's an adult in the room. There's a guy with some skins on the wall. Mm-hmm. There's a guy that won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. John Fox and Tim Tebow once beat Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger in a playoff game, people. And it was like, yeah, this is it. He took Jake Delhomme to a Super Bowl. Like, this is it. John Fox is the adult in the room. How'd that work out?
And then Ryan Pace, unbeknownst to John Fox, kept it a secret to himself and drafted a quarterback with the first pick.
Yeah, pretty messed up that your head coach wouldn't know until like an hour before.
You're not an hour before. Give him a heads up.
Yeah.
Let him know what the hell's going on. Have some common decency.
Right.
If you had any decency, you would have told the quarterback that they brought in, Glennon.
Yeah,
they would have told him, hey, you're going to be up in front of everybody. I don't want you to be shocked, but we might take Trubisky in the first round.
Yeah, it's rough, huh?
So think about it. I tell you, I know what Glennon would have done. If you take the guy, I'm not doing this event.
Right.
Because obviously you're doing what you're doing for a reason. And it's not to support me. That's for sure.
The Falcons did it this offseason.
I'm a makeshift guy.
With Cousins.
Cousins,
Not
yeah.
that Cousins
Well,
was
how
at
do
like
you
a
think-
party. But
How do you think Cousins felt?
that's why he's happy to be getting released here soon.
Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, they said that, didn't they? Didn't they say they would release him, right? That they're going to release Cousins prior to like...
So does Kirk Cousins go after the injury? Does he go the way of Aaron Rodgers, where he can't recover, right? He had the injury before last year.
Yeah.
He had it last year.
Where he didn't recover.
No.
Obviously, he looked good for a while, then it was just off the rails. So does he go the route of Aaron Rodgers, where he's no longer effective, can't be effective, and now his career in the NFL is over?
You know,
I would compare him to a different quarterback. Who's the quarterback who didn't even sniff a team, didn't play this year? Ryan Tannehill.
Tannehill.
He was out there
Tanny.
last offseason.
Tanny.
Yeah, and when you come off at like when you get older, it really does matter when you have an injury like that, like an Achilles injury. I mean, it ain't an easy thing, man.
No.
It's when you're 22, ain't no thing. You're good.
remember
You're like
when-
your body's still kind of taking care
You're
of
a
you.
little more spry.
Early in the season, like September, I remember a cut up of the all-22 of Kirk Cousins not moving in the pocket.
Yeah.
Like he didn't move from like a 3-foot radius
Yeah.
from where he received the shotgun snap
Yeah.
because he like physically can't move anymore. So you know, as a
Yeah.
defense, you know exactly where the quarterback's going
Right.
to be. It makes
Yeah.
it pretty easy.
And it just everything, the throwing mechanics, you need your lower
Yeah.
half. I mean, you need that for force, for velocity, to drive the football, like all of it, Chris. Like it looked pretty bad, and shame on maybe a lot of us that I know I picked Atlanta to win that division. That's a crappy division. It really is. Talk about crummy divisions. It's really crappy. I thought they'd be the least crappy because of Cousins, but it's goes to show you, man, that you get an injury like that, you're on the other side of 35. I mean, it's tough. And he just, in the back half of the season, he was downright putrid and awful, and it cost them a chance at the division. I mean, the Bucs have won that division, 4 years in a row now? And other than the year they went to the Super Bowl, like, have they ever really blown you away with the way they've played? It's just a crummy-ass division. I mean, New Orleans has been lousy. Carolina's been a disaster. Maybe on the right track with Canales and Bryce Young now, but has mostly been a disaster. So it's just been a really lousy, crummy division. I think the Bucs are now the 4-time defending champs of a division that's been putrid. 312-332-3776. That's the number. We'll take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll start taking your calls. People want to talk Bears. We played you what Dan Patrick was reporting on his show about what he heard, that Ben Johnson maybe doesn't want to go head-to-head constantly with Dan Campbell, and that Brady's a big draw and allure. I mean, obviously Tom Brady is not just a minority owner here, guys. He's not a silent partner. It sounds like Tom Brady is running the show, especially in this coaching search, and that could be very alluring to someone like Ben Johnson. Mike McCarthy is in town today in person. They flew him in private. Good for the Bears. They're scheduled to take him out to a fancy dinner tonight. We'll see how that goes, and they're going to wine and dine him a little. Do they still want to wait for Ben Johnson to be in the building? Maybe they're blown away by McCarthy today. We'll try to peel back all these layers. Plus, Caleb Williams talked about his desire for an offensive-minded head coach on Amon-Ra St. Brown on his podcast. We'll play that for you coming up, and we'll start taking your calls. 312-332-ESPN. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Carmen and Jurko on ESPN 1000, Chicago's home for sports. Let's talk hockey. ESPN Chicago and Four Winds Casino present The Hockey Show. Host Pat Boyle and Barstool Chief are your guide for pucks, skates, and power plays. Join us tonight at 8 for The Hockey Show on Chicago's home for sports, ESPN Chicago. Presented by Four Winds Casino and brought to you in part by Nancy's Pizza and your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Chevy dealers.
We've all bought a car before, and what do we all hate? How long it takes. You sit for hours at the dealership. Well, not at any of the Advantage Chevrolet stores. Advantage Chevrolet stores offer a 60-minute guarantee. If they don't get you out in your new Chevy in 60 minutes or less, they will make your first car payment. So visit AdvantageChevrolet.com and visit Advantage at their 3 locations in Bolingbrook, Hodgkins, and Bridgeview. Advantage Chevrolet, home of the 60-minute guarantee. Together, let's drive.
Matt Coker here from West Coast Men's Health. Guys, Viagra is not the answer for your problem. I know you think it is, but Viagra has horrible side effects, and for most men, the longer you're on it, the less it works. Viagra is not a curative medication. It's not fixing your problem. It's a Band-Aid for a shark bite. Acoustic wave therapy is the newest technology that can correct your problem, not just treat it. We can do something that no pill can do. We can restore your blood flow naturally. Get off Viagra today. Change your life like the thousands of men who already have, regardless of your age or your medical history. If you're tired of dealing with Peyronie's disease or erectile dysfunction, then call West Coast Men's Health today.
With clinics in Hinsdale and Deerfield, call 630-425-5033. That's 630-425-5033. 630-425-5033. Online at westcoastmenshealth.com.
It all started back in 1971 when Rocco Polisi and his wife Nancy brought a taste of Italy to Chicago. That's right, Nancy's Pizza, home of the original stuffed pizza. Rocco crafted his recipe from scratch, and when you cut into that crispy crust, you get a gooey molten blend of mozzarella and your favorite fillings that's just perfection. Also, try Nancy's thin crust, crispy on the edges with that caramelized cheese. It is sure to hit the spot. Taste a piece of Chicago pizza history. Stop by my guys at Nancy's in the West Loop on your way to the game, or order from any of their locations throughout the suburbs.
Something amazing is happening in business. More companies are turning to Mac. From finance to fulfillment, CDW will seamlessly support Mac integration into your organization. With the power of Apple Silicon, best-in-class security, and compatibility across your favorite apps, your team will have the performance they need and the tools they love. Make amazing happen. Mac and CDW. Learn more at cdw.com/Apple.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
$9 million. The Verdoliak Law Group wins again for their clients. That's right. The Verdoliak Law Group recovered $9 million for a client who was injured in a truck accident. If you're injured, make sure to call the Verdoliak Law Group at 844-4VLG-LAW.
Zoning out on that Zoom meeting? Zoom. Find out what Carmen and Jurko were talking about. Tell your smart speaker to play ESPN 1000.
Ben Johnson with some media availability, I guess, today. Adam said he's got some quotes. It's Carmen and Jurko, Bleck and Abdallah on the other side of the glass with us as always. 6:30 to 8 tonight. The boys will be on after Waddle and Sylvie. All right, Abdallah, you want to read some of those?
Yeah, they're just real quick. So he talked about his interviews. He said they went great. He was much more prepared for them this year after going through the process the last couple of years. He told Dan Campbell he's now focused on the rest of the season since, as far as they go, he can't interview again.
Right, he can't talk again until they're done,
eliminated. Right? Yeah. So he says now he doesn't know of any restrictions on interactions with Tom Brady this week. He first met Brady on the field in week 9 when Brady had a Lions game.
Mm-hmm.
So do the broadcasters typically meet with the coordinators? I thought it was just the head coach.
I think it's usually the head coach and a player. I could be wrong about that.
It could be different for the playoffs too.
Could be different for the playoffs.
But he could. I don't think there's any restrictions.
Brady doesn't
on the
do
field.
those.
He doesn't do those.
Yeah, he's not allowed to do those. That's my point. He's not allowed to do those anyway.
What he has been doing is hobnobbing on the sideline on the field.
Absolutely.
Before games. That to me is a huge conflict of interest. It's enormous. And maybe the league has said, Tom, you cannot talk to Ben Johnson. I don't know how the other ownership groups or if you're hiring a coach, if you're interested in Ben Johnson, wouldn't contact the commissioner and say, hey, but there has to be something in place here.
I agree with you, but also if you want to know about the job, your agent can do all that stuff for you. Your agent could be talking to Tom Brady every single day. You could be getting all the information you want about the job. It's all out there. Just because he gets 2 minutes face to face with Tom Brady, I don't think before their game, I don't think is going to sway Ben Johnson one way or the other.
But it does afford him the opportunity that not every other team has, that no other team has. He could butter him up. He could talk sweet nothings in his ear.
Well, McCaskey needs a broadcasting job then.
Well, he's too busy doing umpiring work.
Well,
Okay,
get into
That's
the
right.
Well,
Don't spread him too thin.
He could be a ref, and now we go to George McCaskey, our rules expert.
Yep.
You know,
That's what
before
you
the
have.
game, I was talking to Tom. Yeah, I think it's a huge conflict of interest personally, but I don't know. We'll see if the league allow.
Well, the NFL has allowed it.
Yeah, I don't know.
The NFL has allowed it.
I guess it was asked of Johnson today, and Adam said he was not aware of any like restrictions that would be in place. Anything else from that, Adam, or is that it?
No, that's the main
Okay,
stuff.
that's the main stuff. All right, real quick, I want to play this, and we'll start taking some calls. This is Caleb Williams on the St. Brown podcast. He talks here about the qualities that he wants in a new head coach. Take a listen.
Strong-minded, a leader of men. I think that's a cool thing about what y'all got over there in Detroit.
So do you feel like, sorry about that, do you feel like you want your coach to be like offensive minded, or you want a big picture?
I want them
and then have the coordinators.
Like selfishly, I want an offensive minded guy, so I can build with him and be with that coach for the next 19, 17, 15 years, and so I can also learn and grow and things like that from him and what he's seen and what he's gone through with maybe other QBs or been around. So that's selfishly. But if we get a overall like grand scheme coach and is good with time management, good with the clock, good with helping control the game, just because it's a big factor obviously and in our game when we played our first time at y'all's place, big factor. It's being able to help control the clock. And then, helping find the right guys to win championships. That's the only goal that I have for my NFL career is to go win a championship and championships. Start with one.
A couple things there, specifically calling out the play. The clock management issues. I don't know that Mike McCarthy has a history of being the best at that. I would say he very much does not. It's one thing that has always turned me off about him, to be honest. I think now, in fairness to Mike, I guess it seems to be a problem for most coaches in this league, and it's easy for us on the couch. I'm totally willing to admit that. I get it. It's when everything's on the line and it's happening fast and that play clock is going and time's ticking off and the bullets are flying for real, proverbially speaking, of course, not literally. I get how hard that is. I don't know. I'd probably suck at it too. It's a lot easier from my seat on Sundays. I totally understand that. I'm also not paid $10 million a year to be on the sideline to make sure I do get it right to win games. Okay. So I get it's a hard job. People have hard jobs and do hard things in their job all the time. And you're expected to do it well. Mike McCarthy hasn't done it well when it comes to clock management. Matt Eberflus was awful at it. And a lot of coaches, again, really struggle with this. Waddle and Sylvie tried to ask Adam Gase about it yesterday. His answer didn't make much sense to me. And maybe there's just no easy way to answer the question.
He just danced around
He just kind of danced around and he talked about how hard it is and, all the different scenarios, and you try to prepare and then something inevitably always comes up. So I guess I get what he was saying. I understand it's hard. That has not been a strong suit of Mike McCarthy's. What Caleb is looking for. The other thing he said is he selfishly wouldn't mind an offensive guy that he could be with for the next 15, 17, 19 years. And I understand that too. But I don't know why these guys struggle with it so much, Jurk. I don't know. You've been on that sideline when it's happening for real and it happens fast.
You go through it in practice.
I know.
But they go through all these scenarios in practice.
But most guys still stink at it.
Yeah, they go through it. But it's not only that, but it's the guys that are on the field that got to think it too.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you do it in practice. And that's why they talk you through it. This is what we're looking for. This is what we want. This is what the down and distance is. You can't clock it here. You can clock it there.
Yeah.
There's certain scenarios where you can clock the ball, and then there's certain scenarios where there's certain scenarios you don't want to clock the ball.
You have to be cognizant.
You got to be able to run, or we call timeout depending upon how many we have.
Yeah.
This is the place for the timeout, not for the clock.
Right.
This is a place where we can get there and let's run this play because all we need is 3rd and 3. Right. And we're going to run this play here. That kind of thing. Get to the line of scrimmage. This is how we can do it.
Chase on the south side. What's up, Chase?
What's up, fellas? Jurko. I'm in, man.
What's up?
Nothing much. Hey, so listen, guys. I'm not all that excited about McCarthy as much as you are. But I will say this though. So
I don't know that we're that excited. I mean, it's kind of like, all right, I could be talked into it.
yeah,
I think it's a matter
like
of fact.
You
That's
know
the
what it
problem.
is. You know what it is. It's so typical Bears. Conservative hire. That's what it is. That's all it is. It's just okay, typical Bears hire. But my point is that one thing I would say is, how they was talking about comparing Tomlin and McCarthy, but I also look at this. I'm sort of comparing it towards Sean Payton a little bit, because I was looking at the age group. So Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy are not too far from each other from age. And then I was starting to look at both coaches work with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Sean Payton worked with Drew Brees. Mark McCarthy actually worked with two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He worked with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and both guys won a Super Bowl. Both guys have similar playoff records in a way. Both guys have, and so I'm looking at Sean Payton and how he did with Bo Nix, and I'm wondering, is that kind of the same thing as the Bears looking at how are they looking at it? I don't know. I'm not saying this is true or not. I'm just saying, are they looking at the same way how Sean Payton developed Bo Nix, and are they kind of looking at it, well, maybe McCarthy could do the same thing with Caleb, where you got a veteran coach who's been there, done that, who's developed Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and maybe he can get this young quarterback going the right direction rather than get some inexperienced coordinator who we don't know of. I'm just saying, just comparing the two.
Yes,
that's all.
yes, of course, Chase. Of course they're thinking that. Yes. And I think it's why they'll end up going with an offensive head coach. Of course they're thinking that. There's reason to believe that Ben Johnson can continue to get more out of Caleb Williams and build this offense because what he's done in Detroit. There has been no offense in the NFL the last 3 years that's been more explosive or better than the Detroit Lions. Now, they have some advantages. They play indoors.
Yes.
They got a real big advantage this year. Just the way the schedule fell, they played 3 outdoor games all season. And they obviously will not play one in the playoffs, depending on, no matter how far they go. So what? The Detroit Lions could play 20 games this year.
Yep.
And play 17 of them inside. That's kind of crazy. That is going to help your offensive numbers. He's got a great O-line. He's got great skill position players. His scheme is also good. It works. Guys are open. He's gotten the best out of Jared Goff. There has not been a better, more explosive offense in the NFL from an EPA standpoint, from old school metrics to new school metrics. There has not been, over the last 3-year data sample, a better offense than Ben Johnson's.
Yeah, they do well.
But again, there are some built-in advantages that you won't always have here. Weather's going to be more of a factor here for the foreseeable future, depending on what happens with the stadium. So he doesn't have the same offensive line. He's not bringing Amon-Ra St. Brown with him. But like you pointed out, there's still some talent in that locker room.
Yes.
On the offensive side of the football. I think they believe, you'd have to believe that if you're interested in Ben Johnson and if he impresses you, that the same thing can be said for Ben Johnson, that when you talk about Mike McCarthy getting the most out of a young quarterback and helping him, if you end up going with Ben Johnson, you're thinking the same thing. You want a young, bright offensive mind that has done wonders for Jared Goff in that offense up there. Yes, indoors helps. Yes, they have great skill position players.
I agree. I listen, Detroit is phenomenal. They are. It doesn't mean that you can't replicate what they do. You can find a way to replicate it, and what you have and the pieces in place are the skill set. You've got some skilled players that might be able to replicate it. You just don't have the offensive line. That's
that they don't have.
You don't have the time. If Jared Goff's got time, you're not going to have that time here.
Jim's in Florida. What's up, Jim?
Hey.
Hello.
Yeah,
I
Jim.
want to tell you.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, Trevor Lawrence is not a great quarterback.
Yes, I don't think anybody said he was.
But I did say he's a building piece.
He's a building piece. Yerk, I've watched him since Clemson, and he's not a building piece. They paid him too much money, and it's lousy.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's at times he's a head scratcher for me, Jim. Sometimes nobody said he's a great quarterback. There are times where he wows you, and you're like, yeah, he should be great. And then there are other stretches where you go, what's he looking at? What's he seeing? What's he doing?
Yeah,
He's a tough one to figure out.
It's unfortunate.